Greg, one of the pitfalls when it comes to testing that we've seen, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, is confusing business goals with KPIs. Every company has certain objectives. They're trying to make more money, obviously, and there are obviously different ways of going about that. But what can we really test? What should companies be focused on, and how do they really determine the difference between a KPI and a goal?
So I think a KPI and a goal are two different things, but they're very, very commonly confused or maybe actually replaced with each other. The big thing with a goal to think about when it comes to a testing program is the goal is what is your company in business to do? In a lot of cases, if you have an online store, for example, that goal comes down to conversion and revenue based on that conversion. The KPIs, once you've established that goal, the KPIs come out of that. KPIs are key performance indicators, which doesn't necessarily mean they are hitting that goal. What it means is they are metrics that can be measured, that contribute in some way or can be attributed in some way to hitting that goal. So in terms of setting KPIs, Kevin, what do you think are some good best practices?
I think it's really important to make another distinction, and that is the distinction between metrics and KPIs. Certainly, KPIs are metrics, but as we all know, metrics aren't necessarily KPIs. And one example of that might be you've got a homepage and you are putting offers on your homepage and you want to test the offers. One obvious metric might be click-through rate. Click-through rate is an easy to measure metric, but is it actually a KPI if you're trying to determine which offer is the best? Back to your goal. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to increase revenue? So if we're using click-through rate as a KPI to determine a winning offer, we may end up with misleading results because one could in fact win, but not necessarily be the one that generates more revenue for us.
One common pitfall that a lot of testing organizations fall into is basing their tests on proving or disproving or moving the metric of that KPI, and that's a great place to start. But when they analyze the results, they don't necessarily take into consideration how that plays into the overall goal. And in some cases, that's just as simple as not tracking all the way through the conversion funnel. In some cases, it's not allowing enough time. So here's an example. Let's say that you identify a very solid KPI for an online store is from a product detail page, how many people add that product to their cart or to their bag. That's a great example of testing towards a KPI. But if you're not analyzing how that influences those specific variations, those specific test examples, how that influences people who have purchased, actual revenue numbers, then you are maybe basing some assumptions or some next steps in your iterative process on something that is not telling the full story. So that's a very big pitfall.